Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for July 28th through August 3rd. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 2 books. I'll explain why I'm unsure as to whether or not I should be calling that a movie a little bit later. First, this week I finally finished Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I say finally because I started it the day before the reading rush and then had to put it down and read 10 books for the reading rush and then pick it back up to finish it before the end of the month. This book is set in 1920s Mexico and it follows Cassiopeia. She lives with her very large extended family, but she's basically at the bottom of the family because her mother ran away with her father, got pregnant, he died, and then came back, so they're kind of outcasts even though they live at the family estate, and she basically does all of the chores and her cousin treats her like crap. Due to their rivalry, one day she is left behind while everybody else goes off to have fun, and something happens which essentially means she ends up on a magical road trip. So it is a 1920s Mexico magical road trip, and if that's not enough to hook you on the idea of this book, I don't know why you're here. I felt that this book had very familiar beats in terms of where it was going with the plot, but those predictable beats were really filled out by the author and the magic that happened along the way in this adventure. This is a brand new release, the cover is absolutely stunning, and if anything I've said about the book intrigues you, definitely pick it up. Next I did a buddy read with Jean from Bookish Thoughts. I will link her down below. I had picked this book up for myself recently and then I saw that she got it in a Booktuber Chooses My Books haul. So when I saw that she had just received it, I said, hey, would you like to buddy read that? Because I also just got it on Kindle, and she said yes, so we buddy read it. The book in question is A Lesson in Thorns, which is the first in a quartet by Sierra Simone. I've only ever read one other Sierra Simone and it was American Queen, so I knew that this was going to be very dirty. I also had heard many people on Booktube talk about how it was very, very sexy and very, very dirty, and basically all of the characters are queer, and in that aspect I was not disappointed. There were a few things that took Jean and I out of the narrative. For example, all these people are in their early 20s and most of them have advanced degrees, which just... what? No, that takes time. Sure, 1 or 2 of them maybe having advanced degrees, I could see that conceivably, but 5 out of the 6 of them? What? Also, our main character, Poe, or Proserpina, is a librarian, and her job is to go through all of the books and archive them at Thornchapel, and she's going through this one that's about kind of the history of Thornchapel, and it mentions all of the pagan festivals that used to happen there, but instead of putting Samhain, it put All Hallows Eve, and I was like, wow, you can tell this was written by an American. You can't even Google to figure out what the pagan ritual is called. Okay. We did particularly like this one section about doing it all in the name of library science, which was quite funny, and I swear I'm going to use that at work as often as possible. It turns out that the sequel of this book was released the day before we finished reading it, so now we're reading the second one. On to what I watched. I finally convinced a friend of mine to start watching the Good Omens TV series. We watched the first 2 episodes. It's fun for me to rewatch it with him because I also just made him read the book. And if you want to know my full thoughts about this adaptation, I actually did a whole vlog where I watched all of the episodes in one day and told you what I thought on the spot. So I will link that in places. My roommate and I also finished the 2nd season of Glow, which is very exciting because the 3rd season comes out in about a week, so we'll obviously continue with that. It's also really good timing because I'm going pet sitting for a week today and he is going away to see his family for about a week, so it really works out that we're going to come back together and then Glow will just exist for us to watch on Netflix. I enjoyed how this season ended and I'm very excited to see how it continues in the 3rd season. At this point though, I am just perpetually upset for Bash. So that's the thing. We also watched some more of the 22nd season of Survivor, and spoilers for something that happened in 2011, I finally got to see Russell Hantz voted off of Survivor, and he cried, and I thought it was great. He was such a giant baby about getting voted out, and just wow. At this point he doesn't come back on any more US Survivor, although he has been on a season of one of the other Survivors, either South Africa or Australia, I can't remember which one. I haven't seen any of the Survivors that aren't the original American Survivor, but my roommate has, so he can tell me all about these things. Now onto the item that I said was a movie, question mark, and that was The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals by the theater troupe Star Kid. You might know this troupe for things such as A Harry Potter musical. I had no idea that they had a crap ton of other things that they've also done, and this is an original by them, and oh my goodness, this was so good. They are so talented. These songs get stuck in my head and I'm not even mad about it. This is a full hour-and-a-half stage show production that they had filmed with a live audience, and it was so much fun to watch. I just wish I could go to their shows in person because they seem like such an immersive thing. The script was fantastic, the music was fantastic, the choreography was fantastic, there were great jokes. I'm going to try to find the link and put it down below because if you are a fan of musicals, or even if you're not a fan of musicals, this is a musical that I think everybody can get behind. It is just so weird. And the cast is just ridiculously talented. Obviously, I don't talk about everything that I watch on YouTube because then I would just be here all day because I watch a lot of booktube videos, but I figured because this is a full performance and that they actually taped it, I should probably mention it. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is the third Christina Lauren book I've read, and it is my favorite because I think I fell in love with the love interest in it. Let's be perfectly honest, but also it's written very well. This book centers around Maisie and it goes back and forth between the present and her growing up 14 to 11 years previously. Her and her father got this vacation home and there was this boy that lived next door from the vacation home, and she and him kind of became best friends. As time went on, best friends became something a little bit more, but then something happened 11 years ago that broke them apart, and they haven't seen each other since, until they meet in a coffee shop in San Francisco. This is written in such a way that you have no idea what happened 11 years ago until basically the very, very end, and it really keeps you guessing. In their current lives, they're both in other relationships and they're just shocked that they found each other again, and there's definitely an attraction, but she's engaged to be married to somebody else, so they end up just having to be friends and they can't just start up a new relationship, especially because they have not talked about what happened 11 years previous. Also, Elliot is the type of person to be turned on by words, and that's my type, so fell in love with Elliot. In fact, if you want to see me gush more about this book, you should check out my July wrap-up because I spent quite a lot of time just being very enamored with this book. The other audiobook I finished this week was From Twinkle with Love. This one is written in an interesting format because she's writing in her diary, and every entry is to a different female director because she wants to be a film director as well, and she's just talking about her life and her crushes and her best friend who isn't really her best friend anymore because she's hanging out with the cooler people, and this plan she has to become more cool so that her best friend will be her best friend again. Part of that plan includes having this crush on this really hot guy that like everybody thinks is cool, so she figures if she dates him, her best friend will remember she exists. However, we come to find out really quickly that that hot guy has a twin brother who is kind of a nerd and also in love with Twinkle. He ends up producing a movie that she directs and her best friend stars in. This is my third book by this author, and I tend to really enjoy these stories. They are a lot of fun. However, this is the protagonist that I have liked the least. Not that I hated her by any stretch of the imagination, but I spent a lot of time just going, can you please just stop being a jerk? Because that would be cool. She just couldn't seem to let go of this idea of maybe she should date the hot brother instead of the not hot brother who she sort of has feelings for because of this whole thing with her best friend, and I was just like, dude, date the one that you know likes you. On the other hand, she did have this secret admirer and she didn't know if that was the hot brother, and that complicated things, so I can understand it a little bit. But on the whole, you should go into this knowing you might be a little bit more frustrated with this protagonist than you could have been with other protagonists by this author. I still really enjoyed it, and there were some wonderful messages about women in media, and I loved all of that. But yeah, there were points where I just wanted to tell Twinkle to wake the hell up. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!